like it's been a while since we've been on screen together. I was traveling a bit, and as always, our bosses needed you for a million things. So it's been a while since we did a compliance corner.
It has been a while. Yeah.
All right. Well, we have to make this one super duper in order to.
We're going to do our best.
We're going to do our best.
We're going to do our best.
Bum, bum, bum. All right, everyone. Welcome to another Prevail Compliance Corner. I am Orly Burlove.
And I am Noel Vestal.
And we are from Prevail. And we're here to do another Compliance Corner. And this week's topic is why primes are increasing compliance pressure on their subs. And if you hear any loud noises outside, it's because it is pouring out there. I am in Boston, and we're in the middle of a nor'easter. Anyway, if you were like 5 degrees colder, we'd be in the middle of a huge snowstorm, and we'd all be like out playing in the snow. But it's a little bit too warm, so it's just pouring and making lots of noise against my window, which means it's a great day to do a compliance corner on what we're talking about, which is primes increasing pressures on their subs. All right, so this means that primes are creating this kind of carrot and stick type of scenario where they're saying, subs, if you want to continue working for us, you need to not just file your SPRS score, but you need to have a minimum score or whatever that is. And so this is something that's just started happening in the past couple of months. And so we always like to talk about new things here on Compliance Corner. And so that's going to be the focus of today's conversation. So let's do it. All right, so I'm going to turn this over to you, Noel, because you were telling me when we were preparing for this that this is something you just started hearing in January of this year. So why don't you give me a little bit of the outline there?
Yeah, absolutely. It like you said, it has just started really seeming to pop up. Now, I will say, I obviously talk to a bunch of our customers all the time, and I talk to prospect customers with our 15-minute compliance, offering as well. And at the end of last year, and maybe like one person maybe was saying something about how they were a subcontractor and there was a prime that was coming down on them with pressure, and it was maybe one. And then all of a sudden, after the first of this year, of 2023, it's consistently, I'd say probably 9 out of 10 people that I'm talking to who are subcontractors. Wow. Yeah, it has dramatically increased, which is exactly why we started having this, where you and I started having this conversation about this would be a great compliance corner. So it really does seem like it has started after the first of this year. I mean, I can't say that for sure because obviously there's a bunch of primes that'll have different, directives, but it definitely seems that way.
Yeah. And so let's kind of delve into it. So the conversations that the primes are having with subs is what? What are they saying? Yeah.
So it varies a little bit, but because again, every prime is different. Every prime is going to have a different, way that they're going to execute this. But overarchingly, it's, okay, this is whatever your score is now. Okay, great. But we need it to be X score, and it could be 88, like the cap has suggested, or it could be 90. And I've even had someone tell me it was 110 out of 110, which is bogus. A lot.
So let's just set this, the scale here. I'll use a little bit of pedagogy. So, SPRS scores go from negative 203 to a positive 110. And so, the primes here are saying, we want you to have to do a self-assessment and have an SPRS score at minimum of 88, 90, 92, whatever flavor of score they say is needed.
Exactly.
And how are the primes determining what this number should be? Is it just like,
I think it's a little bit of that. I'll be honest. I think that for some of these primes, because of, like you just pointed out, it's a negative 203 to a positive 110 score. So a lot of people, I think, just looking, even myself, when I first looked at that, I thought, oh, well, you have to have a positive score or it's going to be terrible. Like, you're going to be awful. Right. And if I'm negative 2, that's terrible. And and now I know that maybe, it's a lot more gray than that. Maybe it's not that bad. Maybe you have a negative 2 because you haven't implemented A, B, C, and D, and you're going to do that in the next few months, and you'll get up to, a 95 or 98 or whatever, 110 or whatever it is. But I think that a lot of these primes, like so many people out there in the whole CMMC ecospace, are looking at it from a very binary way. Like, it's a 1 or a 0, it's black or it's white. It's okay, well, you have to have 110 or you don't have anything, and then we don't care.
But that's not quite the case.
It's not quite the case. Obviously, it's not even close to that. So the ones that I think have a better idea are the ones who are going with what the CAP is suggesting. So the CAP, which is the CMMC assessment process, which is a document that's out there right now that was actually put together by a bunch of different people, C3PAOs and RPOs and RPs and all kinds of stuff in the CMMC space to create how the actual assessment would work. And one of the things we mentioned in there is that a real passing score where you could actually then hopefully POAM your other remaining items is 88 out of 110. So there are some primes who are going with that number, which I think is more realistic. Okay, fine. 88 out of 110, sure. But the 110 out of 110 seems a bit high to me, but that's just my opinion. But yeah, so they're all kind of all over the place. And it does seem like some of them are going very extreme, like, oh, it's got to be 110. And other ones are a little bit more in the middle and a little bit more understanding, but they all have the same goal, which is that there is a timeline to get it done. Like every one of these letters come, or these notifications come with a timeline.
So what is the timeline? A year, 18 months?
And that's also kind of all over the place. I talked to one person who had 6 months to get to 110.
Oh my, that does hit the panic button.
That is exactly what this person was doing, was panicking, and completely understandably. I also would panic as well. There are also, I've talked to some people who said, well, I have to get to 88 in a year. Okay. Like that makes sense. It seems like 6 to 9 months is the standard for most of the ones that I've talked to. And again, this is very anecdotal. This is just, me talking to people, but from what I've seen, 6 to 9 months seems to be the margin, really. I think is 6 to 9 months. But like I said, I have seen people as high as a year. Nobody passed a year yet, though. A year seems to be like the final drop.
Let me just double down on one thing. So the subs are getting this missive from their primes. And where are some of these subs in terms of their own journeys? Are they not, have they done stuff to get started with their compliance journey? Are they kind of surprised that they're getting this request? How are you hearing it?
Yes. So yes, they are getting surprised by it for sure. They're very confused by it, a lot of them, and most of them have not started, or if they have started, they've got a very, very tiny amount of their maturity going, very low on the maturity level. The vast majority of these subcontractors in this position that I've been talking to are more on the manufacturing side of things. The ones who, and I very much understand how they feel, because if you put yourself in a manufacturer's position of, okay, I'm just making this one part, you just don't really think about compliance. Like, oh, why do I have to worry about the visitor logs here? Or why do I have to worry about whether or not this has MFA? There's all these things that you have to start worrying about. So I think that's where a lot of the struggle is coming from, is those types of subcontractors, but even ones that aren't manufacturing companies that I've talked to who do staff augmentation for the government, where they really should have a little bit more understanding of this, but a lot of them don't, because again, especially if you're running a small business and you're trying to get, you're dealing with all the millions of things you deal with all day, you don't want to have to worry about another huge program, because that's what compliance is. It's a massive program you have to start to implement inside your organization. And the thing to really remember is that it has to continuously be there. Right. This is not a program you do once and then it goes away.
Not one and done.
It's forever. Like you literally can't stop doing it unless you stop doing business with the DoD.
So that raises the next point. We could kind of talk a bit more about these subs and what their profile is, but I think this is an interesting question. Next question, which is, why is there this shift? So we've talked about the primes are pushing down on their subs to finally get with it. Why?
That is a really good question. So this is just based on my understanding. And
more importantly, why now, right? There's been this requirement since 2017 in DFARS 7012.
Yep.
Slow down all these requirements to your subs.
Yeah, it's an excellent question, Orly, and it's one that you and I have definitely spoken about, internally. And what I've definitely come to with it is that it's legal, it's litigation. It's the CYA situation, if you will.
Stand for? Yeah, okay.
It is, because, and it makes sense that they would do it now. In fact, I think in some ways it's even a little bit late. It's a lot bit late if you look at 2017, but when we're talking about the CMMC specific space, it's a little bit late as well, because these contractors now don't have a whole lot of time to get this stuff done before CMMC, is finalized, whenever that happens. But we know it's going to be happening soon. is soon going to be like in a month? Is it going to be in 6 months? Is it going to be a year? But it's going to be soon. So, and as we both know, you and I, it takes a lot of work to implement from nothing to everything a full compliance program. It's very time consuming. So it's really interesting to me that they finally just were like, nope, we're going to do it, January 1st of, 2023. So I think they're even a little bit late, but I do think that the reason for it is still the same. And again, this is just my opinion and based on what I know about this, the eco space and what's going on. And I have also worked for primes. So I also understand that side of it a little bit. There is the point of if and when, and it's really when truly, a security incident happens at one of those subcontractors, it will roll back up to that prime. End of discussion.
Interesting that they all came to that conclusion in unison.
Yes. Well, I think that part of that is because, again, 2023 has been marked as the year that this was going to happen, right? 2023 is the year that CMMC was supposed to come out. We haven't seen that happen yet.
Yeah.
We don't know what's going on, but when January 1st was happening, we all still understood that was going to happen at some point. And I believe that these primes probably started this they motivated themselves into this probably at like the end of last year is when they probably started talking about it. And I think they all started talking about it at the same time for the exact same reason, because, okay, well, if CMMC comes out in 2023, we have to be able to prove to the DoD that we told our subs they had to do this.
Right.
We have to be able to have
we have our CYA in place.
Exactly.
So one kind of ludicrous comment and then a serious one. So I'm just wondering if on the Chinese calendar, you have the year of the rat, the year of the dog. Do you have the year of CMMC?
Yeah, right. Whatever year it is. Yes. Hopefully.
And what animal would CMMC be?
That's a good question. I wonder. Probably a sloth right now, I would imagine.
The year of the sloth.
The year of the sloth. Just sort of sitting there waiting.
So I said I had some serious things also, right? So you talked about the fear of liability, but there's also some more concrete things that we could point to, like the DFARS 7020, right? Mm-hmm. And also the June memo. What would you say to those two things?
Absolutely. And the False Claims Act too. Obviously that's always, constantly, over everything is the False Claims Act. But yes, the June memo for sure, because, and for those of you who are not, familiar with the June memo, is the June 2022 memo from the DoD, essentially giving power to the contracting officers in the government to ask more questions, more in-depth questions about somebody's Sprs score. Like, hey, I'm looking at your Sprs score for this contract modification. This doesn't look very high. Can I see your SSP, or can I talk to you more about this, or whatever the process ends up being? So that was an idea and a mechanism for the DoD to put more pressure onto these different primes and subcontractors who had not been in compliance with NIST 800-171 based on their DFARS 7012 requirements. So, and I think that probably is part of, again, why the primes started having the conversation, last fall. Ooh, maybe we should probably get everybody in line, because it does give an ability. Because this is the example I gave you yesterday, and I think it's probably a really good one, and it's one that a lot of people are familiar with. If you were in the DoD space, it's very common for a DoD agency to have like a couple of civilians or government employees, civilians, military employees who are in charge of a program, but then you actually contract out the staff augmentation is what it's called, the staffing basically of everybody you need for that program, the network designers or the system engineers or, whoever, the PR person, whatever it happens to be.
Right.
So when you have all those people, let's say one prime contractor, let's say like a big company, Big Acme, that's the company. Big Acme Prime wins this contract. Big Acme Prime realizes that they actually don't have 10 network engineers available right now.
So they have to subcontract.
So they have to subcontract. So what they'll do is they will have sometimes multiple subcontractors, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've seen as many as 5 or 6. So we're talking quite a few different people or different companies that now come, because again, everyone you add, you're stretching out your CMMC, flow down, right? You're making it larger, you're scoping it out bigger. So if I'm a contracting officer and a lot of times your contracting officer will sit, or at least it used to be this way pre-COVID, in some places it's still like this. Your contracting officer is usually right there, like in the same area. And they will come in and see people. And, if they have any sort of concern about any one of those employees or groups of employees or what their work that they're doing, or if they get a whiff in any way that subcontractor is not being compliant, why wouldn't they ask the prime when a contract modification comes up or whenever they want to and say, you know what, I'd actually like to see, what is their Sprs score? Like, what do you think they're doing?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, there's some, you can ask that question and say to the prime, do you feel comfortable with them? And the prime has to be able to like, oh yeah, absolutely. Because it's the contracting officer can't go talk to the prime, but they can, or excuse me, to the subcontractor, but the contracting officer can talk to the prime about it. They can say, are they compliant? And if the prime says yes, that's legally binding. So again, where the pressure comes in as well.
So a quick question before we jump to the conclusion of this compliance corner. So the prime is putting pressure on the sub to get, let's say, an 88 for the sake of argument. How
Sure.
are they confirming that they are at an 88 or whatever?
See, that is a really good question, because so far, with everybody I've talked to, there's been a varying degree of results. Like if you can't get to this 88, right, let's say, we're not going to work with you anymore. Like our contract is done.
Okay.
Or we will give you like a probationary period of a month or something or whatever. But it all ends up kind of being the same result, which is that we're not going to come to your house and play anymore. Like we're not going to do it. We're not going to be friends anymore.
That's right.
But what seems to be consistent is that there isn't a mechanism that I've seen. It just kind of says the Sprs score needs to increase. So my assumption at this point is that you need to put in a Sprs score that's better. But I don't see how that's really helpful, because, what if a small subcontractor is busy and like they can't figure it out? Maybe they get frustrated and they're like, you know what? I'm just going to say that I'm 88 and like I'm not doing this anymore. I'm tired and I don't want to do it. How did we help anything? Like we didn't make it better. So I'm hoping that primes, as time is going on, that they're going to ask for some sort of proof, like an SSP at the minimum, right? Just, hey, let me look through your SSP and make sure that it looks like there's some sort of validity to it. Because if the prime doesn't do that, then again, it comes back to that litigation part. Right. You told the United States government that you believe that these people are doing what they say they're doing. You have to be able to back that up.
Got it. So the implications for the subs, I'm reminded of this line that Gina Davis has in The Fly: "Be afraid, be very afraid."
Yeah, it's definitely hard. And my heart goes out to the subcontractors, because it's a lot to throw at everybody all at once, or at least they feel like it's all at once, right? It's, even though, to you and me and so many other people in compliance, this has been going on for 6 years now, right?
Right.
But for these subcontractors, a lot of this is brand new. They're not worried about this kind of stuff. They're just worried about day to day. So yeah, my heart really goes out to them. It is not an easy thing, but there are a lot of solutions out there. I mean, there's solutions like Prevail, where, we're very big on small businesses, especially, small to medium-sized business. I mean, not that we don't love large businesses too, we do, but we are, so there are definitely those, and it's not just us, there's plenty of other things out there as well, but it can be very overwhelming to them. Absolutely. And I would definitely suggest, if there are any who are listening to this right now and have questions, I'm sure we're going to have a link in the show notes to 15 minutes with me. If you have any kind of questions, it's free, and I'm happy to answer any questions I can.
I know it's a lot. Doctor.
I mean, whatever, as long as I help. I hope I can help out, because I know it's a struggle. It's definitely tough. All
right. And so on that, we'll kind of we'll leave it there. The implication for the subs is that you really need to get started on your compliance journey. We've been saying that for a couple of months now. But more importantly, reach out to Noel, talk to us at Prevail. We're always here to help. And any other final words, Noel?
Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching. I love that. All right. And hit subscribe.
Yes.
Okay, everyone. Thank you for watching. Until the next Compliance Corner.